another episode of our Data Center Direction podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Zinck. Craig is currently a Delivery Advancement Director at Stack Infrastructure, and we're talking to us today about the future of the industry, where he thinks it's going, etc. So, welcome, Craig.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. This is awesome. Thanks you.
Perfect. I think I was just saying off air then I'm in the UK currently, and it's probably 33 degrees Celsius, so pretty warm today.
Yeah, we've had a run of very mild temperatures here in Northern Virginia. Luckily, it's been nice, but
Yeah.
I'm sure the heat is heading our way.
Yeah, well, we're not used to it over here, obviously. So, but great to have you join us today, Craig. So, do you want to, obviously, you've got a really compelling background and obviously quite unique, some may say, into the data center world. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about your background and career history to date, and obviously how you then moved into the data center world that you've been in for a couple of years since you joined Stack?
Yeah, sure. It's a long story, but I'll keep it short. So I joined the Air Force when I was right out of high school, right out of 17 years old, joined the Air Force, traveled the world a little bit, worked on airplanes, and then I went to school for engineering. And through the Air Force, they gave me a scholarship. So I went back in as an engineer in the military. In the last 10 years or so, I've been doing space launch. So space satellites, ground systems, launch vehicles, rockets, everything from flight hardware to software systems. And more recently, I've retired from the military, from the U.S. Space Force, and I got into the data center world. Living here in Northern Virginia, it was a pretty visible thing to see the data centers everywhere I went, every time I went to work. And I had a friend in the neighborhood that I talked to, and the conversation led to a position in the data center world. So now that's what I'm doing. I've been in the data center business about a year and a half. And I'm loving it. I mean, this is definitely the best industry to be in. So that's the background. What else would you like to know?
No, perfect. I think obviously we were discussing previously. Obviously, your job title is quite a unique one, isn't it? Delivery Advancement Director. So, without going into too much detail, what does that kind of entail? And was it just through that friend you kind of you fell into the data center world, I suppose?
Yeah. So the job title, we'll go there first. It is essentially trying to do things better, faster, cheaper, more consistent, I think, which is a pretty easy transition from what I used to do to this. We want consistency and outcomes across all of our builds. And to do that, we've got to advance the way we do things, whether it be modularity or new construction technologies or new equipment that we're installing in the buildings. So that's the job. And as far as getting in, it was a lot of prep work and a lot of interest from me because I knew it was an industry that was growing. And then I used my network as much as I could. I had some folks that were local that I had met through, you know, through mutual friends and whatnot. So, along with those connections and a lot of prep and work on my part, I actually landed an internship with the company I'm at now. So,
Oh, right. So you literally started as an intern, basically.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I went from running a mission assurance team on launch vehicles to being an intern in the data center operations center.
Yeah, but it's obviously a great story, right? Because obviously being in Virginia, the hotbed, probably even still now, but obviously we can talk maybe about Texas overcoming that in the coming years. But being in that industry and being in that location, you obviously could see the benefits of the data center world, and it obviously fascinated you. And 18 months later, you're now a director in that business. So really cool story, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, the industry has changed in the year and a half that I've been in it. And I think it had changed a significant amount in the 5 to 10 years before that as well.
Yeah.
Where we're going is not where we've been. So the deals are different, the buildings are different, the technology is completely different. So it's a really interesting space to be in, and I absolutely love the what the opportunity of the future holds. So
Yeah, and obviously, like we've talked about you obviously coming from the space industry. So what surprised you most about the data center industry after working in space?
yeah, that's a really good question. So a couple of things. Space moves pretty slow when you're building a rocket or a satellite. Sometimes satellite builds are 10 years to
Yeah,
build one satellite. And so the scale and speed surprised me, how fast things are done in the data center industry. Um, but also the lack of process and rigor around, the assurance and making sure um, that there is a standard way of doing things from building to building and company to company. I
yeah,
was very surprised that a lot of the industry still runs on tribal knowledge from people
yeah,
that have been in it a long time. So that was one surprise. Another one was how tight knit the community really is, the data center community. It's incredible that I'm sure I could reach out to a friend and I could find anybody in the tight network that is the data center industry. So I think that's a massive uh, a massive benefit also is having that network built in,
yeah.
to the industry itself.
Yeah, and you discussed when you were talking about obviously, it could take 10 years for a satellite, and so are you saying that basically, obviously, because we see it now, right? Speed is, I think, more important than cost in the industry we're in. So, is that the most surprising thing? How quickly we can build these facilities these days?
Yeah. I mean, I think the fundamental budget approach is different from, government to the corporate world. But the speed is definitely huge. And then in space, everything is treated as a system. It all has to work together. We don't have that systems view in the data center world yet, I don't think.
Yeah,
Where we, take what's available because the demand is there, demand is high, so we take
yeah,
the pieces and parts that are available and we put them together and we make them work. But the design isn't designed from the get-go as a holistic system. So
yeah.
that's
And I
that's
think,
definitely a different ideal for sure.
yeah. I think you touched on like the processes and things of obviously building a data center compared to sending a satellite, and like you said, I think I think you're obviously dealing with different kind of challenges in different areas, but there probably isn't a defined process across the industry of how you construct a data center, what you need to do, etc. Because people do things differently, don't they? And like you said, some of it's almost written on the back of a fag packet type approach sometimes, isn't it? Rather than the documentation that maybe, and if we have that, hopefully that'll improve and make the process smoother for new people joining the industry as well.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my focuses is try to make the process more consistent across the board
Yeah,
and that feedback loop for the designers. I mean, the demand is so high that the request from the user comes, we got to have this hundreds and hundreds of megawatts or potential gigawatts as soon as we can. It's already late. We need to, we have a customer that needs this compute power.
yeah,
And then we go from there and we're essentially sometimes we're building before the design is completely finished.
yeah.
um, and so I think as the industry matures, those designs will mature similar to the way the auto industry has gotten really good at producing vehicles compared
Yeah,
to in its infancy.
yeah. So more of a standardized approach across the board. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, there's
yeah,
definitely got to be more standardizing, and even for the vendors, I believe that there's going to be more communication and coalition, co yeah, coalescing to make
yeah,
sure that the requirements for the data centers are changing a little bit, but they're not going to change a lot, I don't think,
yeah.
as far as equipment goes. So those equipment vendors are going to sort of um, standardize how they produce and what they produce.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, because sometimes, like you said, the facility's already been built before the design's actually even been signed off or whatever. So you kind of, I don't want to say winging it in a way, but because the demand is already outweighing the supply, the speed is everything, right? So people, I'm not saying people are cutting corners by any stretch, but ultimately we just need to get it done faster. So I think like
Yeah.
that's where process sometimes, even though in the long run having a standardized process would actually improve efficiency, sometimes in the short term it can actually reduce efficiency as well in my experience. So I think that's probably where the industry, like you said, will evolve and mature as things maybe hopefully slow down maybe in some instances.
Yeah, the tail will start or stop wagging the dog at some point, but when we're changing design as we're building it, it's definitely more costly and less efficient. So
Yeah,
it will change though. It will change,
yeah, for
hopefully.
sure, for sure. Yeah,
We're just in a growth phase, and that's what happens in a growth phase. There's challenges, right?
yeah,
But
exactly. That's like anything in life or any industries in it. So I think what lessons from kind of space engineering could apply directly to AI infrastructure?
yeah, that's a good question. So the interfaces. So in the space world, interfaces are um, the most important piece because you've got a battery interfacing with a system on the satellite, or you've got the satellite interfacing with the launch vehicle, and any change in that interface, you have to know when it changed it, who approved it, the risk that it introduced. And data centers, I think, need some more of that discipline, I guess, because right now changes sometimes are made with our civil engineer. They change the plan. The design folks don't understand that plan has changed, or our end user changes the plan and our design changes, and then the civil engineering folks don't understand that the plan has changed. So there's no way currently, at least not in my experience, my small amount of experience, to see how those changes ripple out through the design and through the build until you're actually, in build and seeing, oh, hey,
Yeah.
we missed this change, or we can see this. And I think that that's some lessons from the space world that could be adopted.
Yeah, and I think they are they're not the same industry ultimately, so there's never going to be exactly the same permutations. Like
Oh,
you're talking about accuracy and things in space, and imagine if you need to be like super close to where it needs to be, rather. So I think obviously that's where maybe things slow down a little bit, but there is
mhm.
definitely like engineering things that we can learn from other industries, and I think space is one of the most complex engineering industries in the
Yeah,
world, I'd say.
yeah. I think another piece is the quality piece. The the partnership that we have with vendors in the space world, there's a lot of communication from a technical standpoint that provides value on both sides of the fence. So the user or the buyer and the manufacturer, they see value from having those communications in that partnership.
Yeah,
Right now in the data center industry, I see a lot of transactional partnerships where
yeah,
we say, hey, we have a purchase order for this equipment, and then it just shows up. And there might be latent defects that we could have seen through a QA/QC process or a partnership in the factory. And I think that is something that the space world does very, very well.
yeah, and yeah. I think like you said, I think what I would say is that I have noticed things are becoming a little bit more intertwined in the data center world. Like you said, maybe working a little bit closer with the manufacturers, or a little bit closer with you on the construction side with your GC and stuff like
Mm.
that. But I think they can, and I think sometimes it's always hard to do that because you're paying someone for a service. You kind of don't want to feel like you're managing through the process. But if everybody worked in closer partnership, the speed, the quality, and the accuracy would ultimately improve, in my opinion.
Yeah, we just had this conversation the other day about how much do we manage to, how much do we want to look inside that GC or that contract? Because if we're managing it, what are we paying them to manage it for?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a valid point. It really is. But the partnership and the openness is definitely something that could improve, I think. Um, and to get those failure modes sort of designed out early in the process, the more communication we have early in the process about quality or partnership or how we do things, I think the less problems we'll have when it is crunch time or trying to turn over a building or trying to power on a building, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And this isn't ultimately, we're a staffing agency. This isn't a staffing kind of podcast at all. We're talking about the future, the industry ultimately, but it's the same in our line of work, right? If we have a briefing call with a client, yes, it takes half an hour maybe to discuss the vacancy that we're ultimately working on. But I know, having been in the industry for well over 10 years, that intro call saves hours and hours of time further down the process of reviewing poor CVs, maybe the people who don't fit the role, etc. And I think that's it can be the same in every partnership, right? You have to spend a little bit of time to get to know each other to make sure that the efficiency, it might not happen, it might happen today, but later down the line, that's where a good partnership always works. So yeah, I think everybody can learn to become better partners in all line of the industry, I suppose.
yeah, and that you're bringing up a great point about requirements. We sometimes the industry doesn't know their own requirements, or they don't carry those requirements through the contract very well,
Yeah,
and they don't write them down. They just we're not requirements based. We're more what we've done in the past. Let's do that instead of
yeah,
saying, "Hey, this is what we're really going to need, and this is why we're going to need it." And then say to the chiller manufacturer, for instance, say, "This is why we want these specific things. Can you build, a variant of your chiller that will meet these requirements in this environment?" And I don't think we have enough conversations about that.
yeah. And I think age old saying, like, everybody's busy, right? Everybody's kind of, not got loads of time in the industry. It's moving so fast and everyone's working 60, 70-hour weeks and stuff like that. But I think, like we both alluded to, if you can have that little bit more at the forefront of the partnership, that will lead to better success in the future. And I think everybody needs to try and work together on that. Yes, you might be paying a GC a lot of money to do to build your data center, right? But if you
Mhm.
can work with them, that hopefully then facility will be completed quicker. So everybody wins. Everyone's here to ultimately be successful, aren't they? So I think it's everyone's got to see it as a mutual kind of alignment, haven't they?
Yeah, I 100% agree. All in it to be successful, and we should have mutual success criteria built into our relationships.
Yeah, perfect. And would you say, from a data center perspective, do you think they're becoming as, we everyone used the word mission critical, right? But do you think they're becoming as mission critical as space systems?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what we do day to day as a society or as a people, I think that they are as mission critical as a lot of the space systems that we rely on day to day as well. Um, the failure obviously is less dramatic. If a data center doesn't work, we're gonna have degraded systems. We're not gonna see a massive explosion.
Yeah,
Uh, but um, but yeah, think about your normal day. You got everyday things like getting a prescription filled, using your GPS, checking your bank account, boarding a flight, streaming a movie. All of those things are critical to society at this point. I
yeah,
mean, not only not only those are just user things, never mind, or community things, never mind government things that are doing as far as security and cybersecurity and
yeah,
protecting our nations. Um, so I think that they're as critical as a lot of the space systems that they are intertwined with already. I
yeah.
mean, think about GPS, for instance. That's a space system, but it couldn't operate without the ground systems and without the data that flows through those ground systems. So, yeah. So, short answer, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I probably discussed this in every episode of this podcast that I've done. It's like, I think as a society, I don't think, there's obviously a lot of political pushback. I don't want to make it around that, around data centers, but people, if you can't log into a social media for an hour, some people will kind of lose their head. If you can't log into your bank for 24 hours, it's like, oh my God, you can't get your phone, etc. So society, like you said, needs data centers. It's become the part of everyday life. But I think the industry doesn't communicate the use of a data center well enough for to the people outside of the industry. Obviously, everyone thinks, oh, well, it's an AI, infrastructure facility. Is that going to take my job, etc. And and things like that. I think that's the more worry to the people outside of the industry than actually the what we actually use the facility for day to day and how much we need it.
Yeah, yeah, it's not all just cat videos. You know, it's an important fact, or it's an important point that you bring up, though. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that when they make a phone call, it goes through a data center. When they look at something on their phone, it's not in the cloud. It's through a brick and mortar facility somewhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of people probably don't realize that. I mean, I've
100%.
had car
That is a
yeah,
fact that they don't, because if I think of my family, etc. and stuff like that, they don't really even know what a data center is, but they're doing a video call. They're on holiday at the moment, 10,000 miles away. They did a FaceTime call with my young son, and it's like that comes through a data center. Do you know what I
yes,
mean? So it's
yep.
yeah, it's fascinating, really. But like you said, to the average person, I don't think they know at all.
Yeah, it's like behind that wall of reality. So people don't
Yeah.
don't think to look or don't think about it. They just, oh, it's right here at my fingertips. So why think about anything further than that?
Yeah, but like you said, in my view, obviously, it is as critical as space systems, because where we are in society today, if you shut down every data center in the world would almost melt down in some ways. We go back to the Stone Ages, wouldn't we? Probably, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yes, 100%. We would break for sure.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, great answer, great answer. So it obviously moves on to my next point. What would you say in terms of power or compute? Which one would be the bigger constraint for AI growth? Would you say?
Oh man. Um, I don't I'm not super technical. I don't know much about how the chips are made or how they're packaged to make the compute work, but I do know that power is a massive, massive limitation right now. And I think that without that power, the compute can't be built, and the facilities that the compute operates in can't be built.
Yeah,
So I think that, I mean, it's probably a bit of a chicken or the egg, but I think power is probably the more important piece and more important problem to solve right now. I know there's a massive backlog of AI demand that is going to be solved by the compute, but I think the bottleneck for compute is probably weeks to months, and bottleneck for power is probably years to
yeah.
multiple years.
A good analogy on that I once heard was if you didn't have an engine for a car, you couldn't drive it. I think that could be used simultaneously for this, right? If you don't have the power, the compute's kind of redundant anyway. And I think the whole industry knows that there's a real power struggle, right? If you have access to that power at the moment, you're kind of winning in the industry, aren't you? I think there's people getting into the industry, you know, you know, owners and real estate companies, etc., have access to power because they've got the access ultimately, and they're then coming into a data center owner or developer, etc., from there. So I think for sure power is still from what I see, and is the biggest bottleneck in the industry at the moment.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
And right on its heels is probably the aging and workforce gap,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, we obviously see that firsthand day to day, right? Like it's yeah. But I think your story is an amazing story, to be honest. Like, how people I mean, fair play to Stack. Obviously, I know you started probably a lot lower down, but they've obviously taken I don't want to say gamble, right? Because obviously prove for an interview process that you could be a value add, but they've looked outside maybe a traditional hire from another data center or something, and now they've got a fantastic employee who's been with the business nearly 2 years, who's grown with the business. So I think there are a lot of transferable skills into the industry. We just, as an industry, need to we can't look at recruitment as a black and white thing. It has, there are skills that can be used from other industries, and I think we are seeing that because we have to at the moment. But I think that in other areas we can definitely get people into the industry. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. That was one of the biggest challenges when I was trying to break in, and it was literally breaking in. I had to use all available network resources that I had. I was rewriting my resume a million times to try to make it more appealing to data
Yeah,
center hiring managers, because it it is a pretty, I said that was a benefit earlier, the tight knit group, but it also is, well, at least it was a year and a half ago. Oh, you don't have data center experience? We can't hire you.
yeah, exactly.
Even
Quite
though a lot of
incestuous,
this,
ultimately.
right, and even though a lot of the skill sets really do transfer, and honestly, if we're going to grow, we got to have some new viewpoints, and we've got to have
Yeah.
some outside people come in with a different outlook on what's possible, and what's the future looks like.
Yeah, because otherwise you end up in this. I see it every day. One of my clients says like, you know, he- he's almost saying to people now like, I wouldn't actually want people in the data center. If they come, but
Mhm.
everyone adds 50, 60K onto the salary because they write the word data center onto the resume. So he's like, I just wanted someone who has the right mindset, got some relevant experience, but ultimately there's a lot of skills that can be transferred from different industries. And I think it needs people like that to drum that home to people, because I think, people, if you control F on a CV and don't see data center, you kind of put it almost in the bin. That shouldn't be the case ultimately. And your kind of experience is absolutely shows that is the case as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I completely agree. The
Yeah.
new look is good.
Yeah. And when you talk about like technology, I know you're not come from an out and out technology kind of background, but in your view, having been in the industry for a couple of years, what do you think? What technology thing will have the biggest impact on the future of data centers?
Yeah, so I mean, AI obviously is having a massive renaissance, or not renaissance, but a massive change in the way data centers work. I think liquid cooling is a massive piece that is going to enable AI to sort of grow at the rate that it's growing and more. Um, I'm not really super familiar with all the technology out there, but I know that um, we don't know what is going to be the big changers, in technology in the near future. I think it's out there and it's being developed. I was just reading up on digital electricity. Still need to go learn about that, but it's a new way to power things, or I don't even know if it's that new, but it's new to the industry.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a bunch of companies out there with the growth that we've had. There's a bunch of people out there working on new technologies that I think will have massive impact. I couldn't tell you what they're going to be.
Yeah, I think yeah. There's That's what everyone's trying to solve, isn't it? How I think I saw an article from someone at Nvidia talking about, rather than cool water, warm water, etc., and stuff like that, which is like quite fascinating. So they're actually working on things like that, and I think as um, there is more technology into the industry, and there's more companies coming into the industry. I think that will help, technology actually evolve. Yeah, people are always looking at ways to be more efficient and save cost and time, etc. So I think, companies that can find bottlenecks will ultimately, make more money, won't they? So that's what companies are trying to solve.
Yeah, where there's money, people will find competition and figure it out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think, obviously your background, obviously being in space, I think obviously a lot of, yeah, there's obviously companies now that are, being built, and they talk about the future, 10 years time, data centers being in space. So you obviously, prior to working in the data industry, as we're aware, we're in the space industry. So how do you think like the two could intertwine in the future?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, they're very intertwined already. I think a piece that would, I mean, if you read articles that people talk about data centers in space, and there's a lot of challenges that comes with that, more from a heating and cooling standpoint. But I think that edge compute or having small megawatt um, capability in space would be super helpful when it comes to how those space systems do operate and how they interact with the mainland or the
Yeah.
data centers here on land. So I think that is probably where we'll start, and then as a test bed, and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're talking of gigawatt sites on the ground here,
Yeah,
aren't we? So I think, I mean, I'm not technical, right? But when I think of a gigawatt in space, it's just like, how would that even be practical? I mean, we're talking, there's nothing of that size at the moment. I'm talking maybe 5, 10 years away, but for me, I just don't even understand how that could be practical ultimately. Don't know if you
yeah,
could shed any insight or
yeah. I don't know if that will be practical as far as the size that we're looking at now or the size that we're assuming now, but I think
yeah,
that the density is really increasing. And I personally think that the current facilities being built for AI are going to have a lot of extra space in them because the density is it's going to condense.
yes, yeah,
So
yeah,
there's going to be extra space, and as the technology develops, where we have more efficient chips, we have more efficient ways to cool them, and that density is increasing, we're going to have a lot more space. So I think um, proving out that density equation here on Earth will probably help them
yes, I
leverage it
understand what
in
you mean.
space. Yeah,
So 5, 10 years time, a gigawatt facility might be, instead of 250 acres today, it might be 100 acres because obviously you'd
right.
be able to squeeze more. I'm not going to say squeeze more in, but there's obviously the racks and stuff will just provide more power and things. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, or the chips are more efficient and they can do more with less, with less
Yeah.
heat, with less effort. So
Yeah, yeah, and then you think obviously at that point, then that'll obviously translate into giving us more things that we then could emulate in the spatial scene.
yep, that's right.
Yeah,
That's exactly how I see it going. I mean, that's yeah,
yeah, no, I think it's obviously really, when you, I think you there's companies that are raising $1 billion, out, a year old to try and solve and put data centers in space. So I don't think I know there's obviously things that have happened previously where there's a lot of capital deployed and then that doesn't end up transpiring. But there is obviously a lot of people that have an idea that having them in space would be great. I don't know how that would translate to them being here, or it still be the demand would be here, but there's a lot of money pouring into that industry for sure, isn't there?
yeah, 100%. I love to see the innovation and the challenges being accepted by industry as well. I think it's great. One benefit from that would be we wouldn't have a lot of community outrage
Yeah,
about data centers if they're in space. So
exactly. Yeah, I think we're personally, in my opinion, as again, I'm not technical, but I think we could be. I think that's going to be the next 5 years. I mean, some people say, but I think that's further down the line as technology advances, and it could be, but it's hard to picture a 250 acre gigawatt site in the atmosphere, isn't it?
yeah, I think it'd have to be disaggregated. I mean, there'd have to be multiple smaller nodes that are connected via, crosslink,
Yeah,
in the same type of orbit. So think of like Starlink. The way Starlink works
yeah,
is there's 4,000, 5,000 birds in the air, and they're all talking to each other through different communication technologies.
yeah.
So yeah, so I think it would have to be something like that, not one big like space station.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I understand what you mean. And just obviously, when you were in that space in what I know you said you had friends. Was it talked around that were data centers actually talked around a lot in the when you were in that spatial world, or did you all
Yeah.
kind of yeah, just keen to understand your understanding when you're in that industry really?
No, not really. I didn't hear about data centers in space until I got in the data center world. So
Right.
I don't know if that's a byproduct of timing or if it's just a one-way conversation. But um, I mean, I see the benefit of having compute power in space or more compute power in space when it comes to, doing onboard data analysis for maybe like a intelligence satellite or a weather satellite, being able to predict things on board and then send that prediction down versus having somebody on the ground take the data, crunch through it, and then make that prediction um, not real time.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Fascinating, fascinating. And it's like I said, the industry is evolving all the time. So I think it's great to hear insights of, from directors, leaders in the space of where they believe the industry is heading. So what do you think, what do you think people are getting wrong about the future of data centers? Is that, what do you think people are getting wrong in the industry to where it's heading ultimately?
yeah, oh man, I really don't know. I think
Yeah,
they're probably missing the point on the benefit that data centers provide.
yeah.
There's as far as the future goes, I know I could probably list off a whole host of things that people are getting wrong about how they actually operate now.
Yeah,
But as far as the future goes, I'd have to say, yeah, the benefit that they provide and the way that they really help society now is something that is misunderstood.
yeah. Do you think the industry could I suppose in the industry though, if you could foresee 5, 10 years time with a crystal ball, do you think we could be doing something now that in 5 to 10 years time would look back and say we shouldn't have done it that way or we should have done something differently?
Yeah, something differently. I think the power solution. I think if we could get, a little bit more educated about nuclear and get that ball rolling and the policy behind it to be able to
Yeah,
have a clean power source, I think that would be something that would be super beneficial, not to just the data center industry, but to humanity in general.
yeah,
Um, and then the transmission and delivery portion of the grid needs to be upgraded. And we're way behind on that as well.
yeah. I think again, like trying to foresee the industry, I think in 10 years' time, we'd probably look back and say, like, why didn't something to do with energy power, like you said, the grid. I think something in 10 years' time. I don't know what, but I think that's where we'll say, bloody hell, why didn't we think of that 5, 10 years
Mm.
ago? We almost like it's at our fingertips now, and we just need to. I don't know what it is to be clear. If I did, I wouldn't be probably doing this. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where we'll see people look back and think we could have done it a lot differently. We almost had the answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like we're gonna look back and say, why did we use Blockbuster back in the day? Yeah,
Exactly,
it'll
exactly.
be something like that. No, I agree. There will be something for sure, and something glaring
Yeah,
that we're getting wrong now that we will look back and say, why did we do it that way? I
yeah, and
agree.
I think like the nuclear thing again is probably one thing that a lot of people talk about, don't they? But again, there's a lot of yeah, it's obviously a completely different way of power and there's
Mhm.
obviously a lot of risk that goes with it. So we need to be sure that that's obviously feasible, don't we? Ultimately.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the risk piece is probably a little bit misunderstood as well. But I, so bringing back
Do
to
you want
your
to
other
explain? Do
question.
you want to explain that? Because I actually, yeah, I'm again, it fascinate me to understand why you think that.
Yeah, well, um, the engineering that goes in and the fail safes that go into a nuclear facility are massive, and the few issues that they've had with nuclear facilities have been super high profile, and that's scared a lot of people. But like the nuclear navy has been operating nuclear submarines for 45 years or however many years and had zero issues. And they're smaller scale, and there's a bunch of fail safes built in their procedures. And I think the policy just needs to sort of catch up, and the engineering is already ready to go. The policy just needs to catch up, and the public perception piece is something that is going to be
Yeah.
the biggest hurdle, I think.
I think that's really interesting you say that, to be fair, because I've never looked at it like that. And again, I think that's where we can obviously utilize different industries to actually help the data center world, rather than being so incestuous. Like if we use it in the Navy and you know, on, like you said, why can't we use it in data centers? We've been doing it for a long time. So I think that's always the benefit of having people from other industries join the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the final kind of question, I suppose, if we looked ahead to kind of 2030, 2035, what would today's data center seem kind of outdated for?
Oh man. Um, I think diesel backup generators probably is going to be something that it's going to look outdated if you look at a data center, current data center in 2020 or 2035. That's just because of the environmental piece and the sustainability piece. So there's a lot of data center companies that are having a massive focus on sustainability and maybe not net zero, but there's a lot of goals out there about sustainability. So I think that's something that's going to change a lot. And then the density is one of those things that you'll be able to tell what data centers were built when because of the density piece, because that's changing every day. And then I think the AI isn't going to be as as much of a bad actor as people think it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's going to be a net positive to the world. So, yeah, maybe that's a piece that people will shift their opinion on in 2035.
Yeah, I think with the AI piece, it's anything where you step into the unknown a little bit kind of worries people, doesn't it? You know, when you hear like, and I think, you know, companies have got excuse at the moment if you make layoffs, so it's because we're using AI to make things more efficient. And obviously we're only at I don't want to say at the start of AI, but you think things like Moore's law is, you know, 18 months time, AI will be twice as powerful as it is today. So then it's like, right, so where are we going to be? So, but with any kind of industry revolution, usually comes new demand for skills, etc. And I think we'll just, as we always have done, I think society will ultimately evolve. It's just when you step into the unknown, it's always difficult for people to see into the future, isn't it?
Yeah. There's an industry that'll pop up in 2035 that we don't even know about now. So, yeah, no, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, I think 10 years ago, if you think of the data center world, it was completely, you know, like the capital being poured into it, etc. Today, 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have even imagined it. So there'll be something else that kind of comes down the line as society evolves, don't we? We just need to go with it. But I think the only final point I want to touch on was when you were talking about you obviously came into the industry having not been in it previously. And I think, how would you feel like we can accept people into the industry a little bit more than we do today? Because your background is fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, man, I think it's just coming from an open mind and being able to see that other industries, whether it be military or other types of construction, they could be leveraged, and that viewpoint, that external viewpoint, could be of value to a lot of places.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that it's what it comes down to, is an open mind.
What do you think from a company perspective? Like, you know, what initiatives could a company do to actually, you know, to get people like yourself into the industry? Because if you want to take in that intern, you know, like you said, your career could look completely different to today. And if Stack may want to give you that opportunity, so like, what do you think companies can do to ultimately, bring new ideas into the industry for people, that haven't been in the industry.
Yeah, I think community engagement and being a partner where you're at. So as companies build, they reach out to the community and be engaged and be transparent about what they're doing. And they won't be the big bad wolf, and people will want to come work for them and then have that conversation. What is your skill set? What can you do? And then embed, that way they can embed themselves with the people in the community. And I really think that a lot of people that have any kind of technical expertise or project or program management could provide lots of value for a lot of companies in the data center world.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's just from a industry perspective, there's a big wide world out there, isn't there, where we can, because I think that if you see the labor shortages today, they're only increasing, right? So we can talk about educating, younger people and things into data centers, and rather go to college, could they go into a trade or something like that? But also people in work currently to transition into the industry. I think there's something needs to be done on that, because I think you're a great example of something that's come from I wouldn't say a different background, but ultimately, you weren't involved in the space, and you've obviously done a great job in the time you've been in the space, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and some of it's incumbent on the person too. I mean, if you want to get in the data center space, you've got to look at what your skill set is and how you can translate those skill sets, and go out and learn about what data centers do and the terminology they use and the things that they operate, whether it be MEP or server racks. But go educate yourself about the terminology that the data center community uses and figure out how your experience sort of ties in. So it's a two-sided coin for sure.
Yeah, I think you make a great point there, without going into too much detail. I think it's all well and good saying you want to get into the industry, but you have to ultimately do your own research. You have to you have to put the kind of the hours in before you're in the industry to understand. Like you said, if I want to get into the industry, how can I get into, where does my skill set best fit? Yes, you can maybe get a mentor in the industry. You obviously had some friends maybe that helped, and that's obviously a benefit. But with the use of things like the AI tools that are out there today, you can upskill yourself quite quickly in areas if you're smart. Ultimately,
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, hundreds of hours of podcasts and reading on my end before I ever stepped foot in a data center.
Yeah,
just to because I knew that's what I wanted to do. So it goes both ways, but I could definitely see your point as far as the community or the company and the person has to better understand each other.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really appreciate your time. I think it's fascinating. Someone coming from the space industry, I think a lot of people think we'll head there. So I think you could add some amazing value to the industry long term. So thanks so much for your time today, Craig.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.